Hey guys, welcome to Why Sherloc, the Power of ParAible. My name is R.C. Williams. I'm co-founder at Sherloc along with Juliana Ormond, and we're excited to do this series. As we go through, what we want to share with you guys are the tools that we use in the background to provide the research and the forecasting that you ultimately see from us and from Sherloc as a business. So you may have found us through our news publication, SherlocExposes.com. We do a daily newsletter called Rip from the Headlines. You may have engaged with us on the business to business side through our website, investinanswers.com, or at a conference or at a meeting. So what we want to show you is ParAible, which is our market research technology platform where we get all these great insights from. So we're going to do that in a long-running series. And I actually have an exciting announcement about access to the ParAible platform for you as we get to the end of the Why Sherloc edition today. So a bit of background on ParAible here as I bring up on the Sherloc big board, the ParAible Market Research Platform, is when we first started Sherloc, we have a strong background in competitive intelligence. That means we do a really good job with taking mass amounts of data, figuring out where the dots connect, and then getting you a result that's actionable and tangible quickly. So we said, you know what? We pour through thousands of pages of data as human beings. That's a lot. What if we built a technology platform, basically our own brain that could go out and get a ton of data about whatever we ask about, synthesize it, bring it back in graphs and charts where it's easy to understand and easy to use. So then we went out to about 150 friends who were executives at companies or business owners. And we said, look, here's what we're thinking about building. If we did that, what would you want to see? So they gave us a couple of things that were consistent pretty much across the board in all of our interviews. The first thing they said to us is, whatever I ask about, I would want to know what's driving the conversation or engagement around that, whether it was positive or negative, what websites, what research papers, what media outlets are driving the engagement and narrative around what I asked about. And then as deep as you can dive for me, if you could give me individual pieces of content or reports or whatever that are doing that, that would help as well. The next thing that they asked us about was the capability to know where a topic sits with someone. So where does it sit in their consciousness and how do they feel about it? Anything around emotion you could give me is helpful. And then they said, however deep you can dive on the emotion side, I really want to get inside of that. So if something's negative or someone's angry, what else is associated with that? And then the final part was, hey, if there are any words or terms that happen to intersect and there's any emotion or engagement around those at all, I'd sure like to know about it. So imagine you're giving a speech and it's on the topic of world peace. Well, you'd want to know that at the intersection of world peace and the United States, for example, if there was a negative connotation, so that you could craft your message around that to make it as advantageous as possible. So that was really important. So ultimately what we did is we took all of those things and we built the ParAible Market Research Platform. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to walk you through a topic that has been super hot lately. As we're doing this, central bank digital currency, or CBDC, has been all over the place. Juliana and I have been on a number of shows talking about the potential impacts from a central bank digital currency and how this all ties in with governments wanting to regulate or eliminate things like cryptocurrency. So as we go to the Sherloc big board here and we take a look, you can see that we start in the first section with the key drivers. So you'll remember for a moment ago, these are the outlets or the places that are driving engagement around the topic or the narrative. So this one's pretty simple. The larger the bubble, the more impact that website or research paper or outlet is having. And you'll notice that as I scroll over them, you see websites pop up. So here's the great thing, is that if you click on one of these, it actually takes you to the website that's driving the narrative. So in this example, it's the Wikipedia entry for central bank digital currency. Not necessarily surprising, people see Wikipedia as the world's encyclopedia, come what may, but that's the way they see it. So people will normally go here for research or information. One other one that's very interesting here is the Atlantic Council. So the Atlantic Council is a think tank that specializes in things all around the world for different countries. What makes them unique is, you'll see here in a moment, is they actually have a CBDC tracker. So you can actually track the progress of central banks around the world in development of their own central bank digital currency. I'll tell you this much. You don't want to see your country in pink because that means they've already launched. And a couple of countries have done that. Nigeria has actually done that. It tells you the categories and you can jump around. You can see the United States is in a research stage, although they're in the process of a test with the 12 major banks and the New York Federal Reserve right now. But here you can see around the world where central banks and nations are with their development or testing of a central bank digital currency. Now, in the normal course of research, just finding that information may take you weeks or months, and then trying to figure out what's most important might be near impossible. But with the power of ParAible, you're actually able to get that done in days instead of weeks, and we make it easy for you to understand what's driving the conversation most. And so then in the next section, we do the drill down that was requested of us. So are there individual pieces of content that I need to be concerned about? So here's what we did. We found them, and then we scored them based on the weight of engagement, positive or negative, the impact of the outlet that created that content, and a number of other things that are special in our algorithm to give you basically a power score to help you understand how much weight or how much impact they have. So you can sort by title, you can sort by score, and something we added is you can also sort by date. There are times where a piece of content that's older actually is the needle in the haystack that you need. And that was the example here. So first we'll look at the score, highest to lowest. And you can see the Fed, the question is asked of the Fed, what is a central bank digital currency? This shows that people are going to places that they would normally trust for information. But as you'll see in a moment, when we get into the emotions, that didn't work out so well when they went to get the information. So as you can see here, there are a number of articles. But as we dug into the data, one of the things that we found interesting is there was an article from back in 2019. It's right here. And it says the German government approves new plan to block private parallel currencies. So this would reference cryptocurrencies, but also things like trade and barter, maybe gold and silver, anything that is not within a centralized economy. The German government had approved a plan to block it. So if we go here, again, the ParAible takes you directly to the article. This basically says that Germany, one of the most advanced societies in the world, had a plan to make sure that you couldn't do anything with regard to commerce or exchange of value outside of a centralized system. So all the way back in 2019, Germany, at least at the government level, believed they recognized a threat to centralized control, and they were working to stomp it out. Again, the power of ParAible shows up. You may have never found this in the normal course of research, or it may have taken you months to even connect the dots. The platform is designed to do that for you. So as we continue, remember, we talked about where the story sits with someone and how they feel about it. So we took the time to work with psychologists, and we said, we want to understand how humans are human. And what we discovered is that where something sits with someone, where the topic lives in their head, basically breaks down to 4 categories. It's either fluid, it comes and goes. It's cultural or tribal in nature. It is perpetual, so it's ongoing in the psyche of people, or it's life-changing. It is a world changer. It is something that's not going to go away. It's well established. The same goes for how people feel about something. Generally, that falls into 4 basic categories. They are either disengaged, sad, upset, or pleased, or somewhere in between. So what we've done with the central bank digital currency data, and what we do with all of our reports, is we take a look at both of those things. So the key here is that the further away and higher up from the center that the icon is, the more intense the effect is. So what we saw in this data is the central bank digital currency was on its way up into the perpetual category, which makes sense based on what we just saw, but people are upset about it. And when we drilled into this data, that trend was actually moving higher up and further away, which means that the feeling of being upset was beginning to intensify. If you take a step or 2 back, when we looked at the data, it starts to make sense. People are going to what they would consider trusted sources for information, and either A, they're not getting an answer they can understand, or B, they're seeing a control system being put together that is going to impact their freedom. And they don't like either. right? We're human. We don't like that level of uncertainty or that feeling that we're being taken advantage of. So that bears out here in the top level data. And as we drill down into the emotions, this is what we do with the Wheel of Fortune, another powerful part of the ParAible Market Research Platform. You can see here that we've got things on an arc. So normally we see positives, which are green, negatives, which are red, ambiguous emotions, which are kind of a light blue, and occasionally we'll see almost a copper color, which is neutral. What was interesting in this data, as you can already see, there is no green arc. There was no positive feeling whatsoever that we found in the data on the topic. And when we drilled inside of the negatives, because one of the executives in particular said, if it's a negative, I want to know what it is because it may be advantageous to me. Well, looking at the CBDC data here, we can see that there's anxiety and distress. Both make sense based on what we just talked about. A general dislike, anger, and impatience. So all of the negative emotions that you'd probably expect from something like a CBDC, given what's going on, and the lack of information or the ominous feeling of that information, this all makes sense. And so when you use ParAible, you can actually dig into these emotions and see what's going on. The final section goes to, hey, the intersectionality of it. At this intersection, is there a positive, a negative, or an expected tone? Did you find anything? And so that's what we did with the grid. And quickly here, you can see at the intersection of the US Federal Reserve and the central bank, there is a strong expectation that something's going to happen. We don't quite know yet if that feeling will change, but at this time, that's what we can see. So we see that intersection at central bank, and we also see that same intersection at US Federal Reserve and the world. So people are generally feeling that the US Federal Reserve is going to lead the charge in this in some shape, form, or fashion, and they're expecting it to happen. There's a strong expectation in that category. So however you were looking to use this data, whether it was informational or to alert people, one of the things you could say, in essence, is that, well, people they're really expecting something. That's what the data is telling me, so we need to be aware of that. If you're providing solutions or sounding an alarm, data like this is incredibly valuable to you. So guys, that is a look at why Sherloc, the power of the ParAible Market Research Platform. The exciting news that I want to get to you here as we bring down the Sherloc big board is that ParAible as a market research platform has traditionally been business to business. We work with other businesses in different categories for that. But what we've decided to do is open up the ParAible Market Research Platform to everybody. So we've actually created a monthly subscription. You'll have 5 categories that you can choose from, and twice a month, we'll provide you updates on those categories along with one-page blueprints that give you a highlight of what all that data means and suggestions on things to look for, and maybe even things that you can do. So we're super excited to be launching that now. If you go to investinanswers.com, that's investinanswers.com, and you click the button that says learn more about the power of ParAible, you can get set up for $99 a month and get the same type of data that we use to forecast and predict at your fingertips. 5 categories, just $99 a month. So do this for us. Go to investinanswers.com, go get signed up now and get on there, because twice a month you're going to get the information that you need. So guys, thank you for joining us for this first edition of Why Sherloc, the power of the ParAible Market Research Platform. We look forward to seeing you soon and sharing really great insights.